I'm from East Africa. I'm from Kenya, and my father is Luo, and so it means that we're from a tribe that's kind of basically around the shores of Lake Victoria, which is the biggest body of water in Africa,
Okay.
possibly in the world. I don't know if it's bigger than the Great Lakes in Canada, but anyway, it's this huge, huge lake, and my first memory, I think, of being in water, I was really scared of water when I was younger. I don't know why that is. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of cultural implications, water fear in the kind of black and brown community, but my mum's white, my dad's black. And so I would go into the water, but I'd have to wear like a rubber ring and armbands and like a floaty vest. And my mom would have to hold me and I'd be like, you can't, I was just like terrified. And then I think we were in Uganda. I think it was like my third birthday. And I swam in Lake Victoria. And that's kind of my first real memory of actually feeling like in communion with the water.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, I took all of my armbands and floaty vests off, and then that was it. And then I never got out the water. I loved it forever. Yeah, I'm certain. I think I was too young to be like freaked out by that kind of
You don't
stuff.
want to
I mean,
know.
it's weird when I grew up in Kenya. Well, I grew up in Nairobi, but obviously we spent a lot of time kind of up country, out in the bush, etc. And I remember when I moved back to the UK, I was 13 and I would see like badgers and hedgehogs and I just thought they were like so exotic and really
Yeah.
strange because I'd just grown up with kind of zebras and giraffe and buffalo and whatever, and I kind of thought that was quite normal. Hippos kind of freak me out a little bit, but Lake Victoria I think is just there's lots of tilapia, lots of fish. I always tell the story. I did my first competition when I was like 6 years old, in this 25-meter pool at my school in Kenya called Peponi, and I think I did like 25 meters freestyle. And I'd never, do you know what I mean? Like I'd never done a competition before. It was like a little school's gala or something. I was just so fast. I was so good. I was so like naturally at home in the water. And I did all of these races that day and I won them all and I came home. This is actually really indicative of what I'm like as a person. This is quite an embarrassing story, but I drew my mum this picture when I got back, and it was like this little brown girl in a little costume with a
Yeah.
red ribbon and a medal around her neck. And I was like, this is me when I win the Olympics. And then that was it. So from 6 years old, yeah, I think competitiveness is very much in my family. That's a strong trait. And I think being the eldest child and, my mom and I had a not particularly straightforward or easy upbringing. Didn't have a lot of money when we were growing up, and she made me pretty tough. My dad's a bit of a fighter as well, but neither of them could swim at all. I think actually my mum taught my dad to swim when he must have been like 45 or something. I think my mum did not know what she was getting into, with the mornings and the driving and the poolside, and it just takes over your whole life, right? But both of them
Yeah.
very naturally athletic, both of them sports people, both of them very competitive, very driven. So it could have been anything. It just happened to be swimming. My dad wasn't around. My dad left before I was born, but my mum, yeah, she was the real OG. She did the whole thing. She knew everyone's times and she'd like write them down in the program. She was hardcore. She was a pusher. You need
Yeah.
it though. I think it's a really strange thing. I write about this in the book, the relationship between that triad of parents, coaches, athletes, and then success in the sport kind of at the center of that triangle. And as a parent, you have to decide where the line is. And I think that's a really difficult position to be in, especially when your kids are kids, right? You
Yeah.
start so young and you're pushing your body beyond what's possible or, beyond what limits you think exist. And, there are days you come home from training and you're like bawling your eyes out. And you're like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I hate it. Your mom's like, you have to go back to training tomorrow morning. And if my mom hadn't done that, I never would have got where I did. Proofs of the book have started to go out, and people like both swimmers and non-swimmers are reading it. And I'm always really surprised when people come back to me and they're like, I didn't know you train that much. And I was like, what do you think? what do you think we were doing all the time? Do you know? They're like,
Yeah.
wow, like it's a lot of training. I'm like, well, yeah, of course, it's a lot of training. So I guess at the height of my career, I was training in the pool 8 to 9 times a week.
Wow.
That would be up at 4:45 most mornings, in the pool by 5:15, and then swim until 7:30, 7:45. So you'd get a good like 8 to 10K in the morning sometimes, depending on whether it was
Wow.
like a threshold or aerobic set. And then the evenings was always a mix of kind of low level A2 drills, and then you do like 2 or 3 kind of sprint sessions a week. I was a sprinter. On top of that, we did weights. On top of that, we ran. Lots and
Wow.
lots of plyometrics and stretching. I mean, you're just in pain all the time, right? You're just like constantly always in pain. And the weeks were always the same. Sunday was the only day you had off. Most of the time we ran on Sundays, and then wake up and do it all over again, 50 weeks a year, every single day.
Yeah, I knew it would be intense, but wow. So what's like, are you doing 10K? How early in the morning would you be doing that? Because that's
5 a.m.
seems 5 a.m. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
But you were
I
short
mean,
distance
I
or
was short
just
distance, but I think one of the kind of prevailing, I guess, physiological beliefs about swimming is that when you're young, you've got to get your threshold and aerobic capacity up as high as possible. So you want to develop your lung capacity, you want to develop your endurance ability. And then if you are a sprinter, or if that's the way your body is inclined, you kind of become that way as you
right,
mature into
okay.
the sport. The goal is just swim as much as possible,
Yeah.
basically. I left Kenya when I was 10 and moved to Cape Town for 3 years. And that's kind of where swimming got really serious before I moved back to the UK, and it got even more serious. But I had, um, I guess my kind of dunk in the deep end was I had these 2 crazy Hungarian, like really Eastern Bloc coaches. And I was super young. I was like 10, and we'd swim in this pool in South Africa, which had this broken pump, and it was like 18 degrees. It was horrible. And I was just like
Wow.
crying to my goggles, like all session, as we just
Yeah.
did 16 times 50 meters butterfly, just again and again. Um, and that was really, really hardcore. And so when I went to the UK, although it was a step up in terms of mileage and commitments, my Eastern Bloc coaches made me like really ready for that. You know, my coach would just stand on the side of the pool and just be like, swim, you know, and you would just be like, oh my God. I still start back to front. I've always wanted to write, and yeah, I love words as much as I love the water, maybe even more. The writing process was amazing. It was almost kind of like swimming itself, like it's such a solitary sport, and it's a very kind of indulgent experience, and it's also
Yeah.
very like immersive, like being in the water. And I think that helped me write a lot of the kind of physicality of swimming into the book. I really wanted people to feel at some points in the book like you're in my body and you're swimming with me. So I love the writing process, which I think is bizarre. Most people don't necessarily find that particularly easy or the easiest part, but I really enjoyed the kind of solitary nature of it. Delving back into my memories, especially some of the more difficult and challenging parts of my career, was harder.
Yeah.
Um, but what is the book about? The book is about it's about race and racism within institutions, in this specific context, sorry, the institution of elite sport, and swimming
Yeah.
specifically. So I was the first Black woman to swim for Great Britain, and the book kind of charts my career's ascent and that story of being different, being looked at, being the best, struggling between and in the tension of those two things.
Yeah.
It's also a coming of age story. It's very like about teenagehood, and that was really fun. That was like a fun part to write, being in a boarding house and all the other swimmers, um, you know, and boys and all the drama that kind of comes with that. So that was enjoyable. But I think mostly it's just like an ode to intensity. It's about like the ecstasy of peak physical performance and what it feels like. And I think it's broadly relatable in that way. Like if you love anything so much that you feel so kind of consumed by it, then yeah, there's something in the book for you. Like I think I should have talked about it more and embraced it more when I was younger. I think that's a really hard piece of advice to give your younger self when, you know, if you're like 14, 15, like you just want to fit in, you don't want to be different. I think there's a lot of power in yeah, just embracing your kind of outsider status, whatever that might be. I think the book was kind of my way of owning it and maybe sucking out the poison a little bit, but also taking it back for myself. And I guess I wish I could have owned that a little bit earlier. But in terms of swimming in general, don't wreck your knees in the gym. Because that's what I did. I have a lot of reverence for the water, and I think that you need to have a lot of respect for the open water, and knowledge as well. I think they're completely different things. You know, I love racing in a pool because of the kind of clinical nature of it. It's like just you and this distance that's exactly 25 meters and the clock just ticking down, 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 down. And that's one kind of feeling. There's such an intensity to open water. When I was living in South Africa, I did a lot of beach lifesaving, and you know, I had to do my kind of run, swim, run, which is the first test that you do. And it was like 8 a.m. in Long Bay. It's this massive beach. And I was just terrified of being eaten by a shark, like just absolutely terrified. And I did the run, swim, run like so quickly because I was actually to get out of the effing sea. Like I just got to get out of here. And so, you know, that's a context very specific to Cape Town and like great whites and whatever else. It's a very intense thing that I think you have to learn and you have to love, and you have to be very aware that like you can lose the battle to open water very easily. But I think mastering that fear is really, really, really rewarding. There's something about the open water that's just, I don't know, it just feels like being alive. It's like, yeah, it's a very beautiful experience, but yeah, it's scary. And I think it should be. I think you have to lean into that. Like it's not, yeah, it's not something to be taken lightly, but very intense.
I had that with,
Yes.
I went to one of the beach swims in Australia when I got here, and I was like, right, I'll meet some people, go for a sea swim. We swam across Bondi Beach, and I got kind of separated because the waves was like big
Oof.
enough for me to lose people. And then
Oh,
like the water just felt like really charged with loads of electricity, and I was just like, obviously thinking about sharks, and then kind of out of my depth. So it's just everything at once, and then having just arrived here, so I had to like head just directly back to the beach, but I went through like they call it backpackers rips. It's like the worst possible place to swim.
oh my
And I
God.
just remember like looking at catching surfers' eyes and just thinking like, can I go and grab onto your surfboard? Like, am I going to be that guy who gets airlifted out? It's just arrived.
You do have to get into like one or two hairy situations to really learn that it's not like it's no joke.
Yeah, it's a good
But
lesson.
then I think that that's amazing. Like you kind of have these small battles with yourself and you overcome them, and it's a very personal thing. Like oh, I'm gonna have to message you about this afterwards because I'm gonna forget the name, but there's this like dormant volcano that's now like filled with water at the top,
Right.
and you can
Wow.
swim. They like hike up it and then you can like swim across it.
Where is
And
it?
I'm gonna try. I need to try and remember where it is. I was reading about it in National Geographic.
There's one
I would
like
go,
that in Indonesia called Rinjani. Is that it? It look
yes,
it looks amazing.
yes, yes, that is it. That is it. I've never been to Indonesia either, and I would love to. I would love to go. I would love to do the island swims between some of the like Greek archipelagos. my stepdad is half Greek, and we spend a lot of time in Crete, and I think
Nice.
that would be a really amazing challenge. Like, you basically just swim between islands and like camp on the beach.
Yeah.
But it's quite a long, I think it's a week, and it's like a lot of swimming. Yeah, I would love to. No, I would love to do a SwimTrek. I think that
Yeah,
would
we'll
be
have to get you
amazing.
on one at some point.
Yeah, please, 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 please. That would be very cool.
So Crete potentially.
Yeah, something around Greece, or swimming on the top of a volcano. I think that would be. I hate cold water. I can't. I don't do that to myself anymore. So it needs to be warm. It needs to be summer. It needs to be. Wow. Sorry, I'm just looking at pictures of it now.
Yeah, it's so good.
That looks incredible. Okay, my next trip. There we go.